Welcome to Word of Knowledge Christian Center, where we're helping to build a kingdom, not just a church, where Apostle A.C. Morgan is our pastor. Join us on WebEx on Sundays for our morning service at 10 a.m. and discipleship training, Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m. To join us on WebEx, email wordofknowledgechristiancenter@gmail.com or call to be added, 757-737-7280. Listen to A Word of Knowledge broadcast on the radio or download the Wilkins Radio app. WBTJ Pensacola, Florida AM 610 and FM 105.3 Friday, 8 o'clock to 8:15 a.m. Central Time. WASG Mobile, Alabama AM 540 and FM 106.1 Wednesday, 7:45 to 8 a.m. Central Time. WNWR Philadelphia, Pennsylvania FM 95.3 and AM 1540 Saturday, 7:15 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. WUMY Memphis, Tennessee, AM 830 and FM 105.5. WEZZ Canton, North Carolina, AM 970 and FM 102.9, Sunday, 6:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. WSky Asheville, North Carolina, AM 1230, Sunday, 6:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Just download the Wilkins Radio app or online at www.wilkinsradio.com/our programs, A Word of Knowledge broadcast.
You're listening to a Word of Knowledge broadcast, and I am your hostess, Apostle A.C. Morgan. Today, I would like to speak on the topic of seeking advice. When the Word talks to us about seeking advice, it's referring to seeking advice from God or godly people. It's not talking about seeking advice from the world. It's no way they're able to give us godly advice. Sometimes we find ourselves seeking advice from friends and family and co-workers and kinfolk, but they're ungodly. They can't lead you to the spirit realm. We're going to go through several scriptures that's going to give you advice on how to seek advice from God. Let's start with James chapter 1, verses 6 through 8. Verse 6 reads, "But he must ask for wisdom in faith." And did you hear that? You must ask God for the wisdom, but you must ask in faith without doubting God's willingness to help. Another point, you have to ask for wisdom in faith, knowing that God is willing to help you. It goes on to say, "For the one who doubts is like a bellowing surge of the sea that is blown about and tossed by the wind." 7 says, "For such a person ought not to think or expect that he will receive anything at all from the Lord." In other words, if you're doubting God's willingness to help, it's no need for you to expect or think you're going to receive what you're praying for, what you're asking for. Verse 8 says, "Being a double-minded man, unstable and restless in all his ways, and everything he thinks, feels, or decides." That's another thing that stands in the way of God answering our prayer for wisdom. You begin to be double-minded. What does that mean? It means that one minute you believe he's going to be there. The next minute you don't know if he's going to be there. Your mind is going back and forth, Can't get it right, can't decide. You think he's going to do it, you think he's not going to do it. You think he's going to do it, you think he's not going to do it. Then you get to a place you just doubt altogether that he's going to do it. That is no way to get God to answer your prayer concerning the advice you're seeking. Let's go to Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 through 6. 5 says, "Trust in and rely confidently on the Lord with all your heart, and do not rely on your own insight and understanding. And this is where we fall short, because we try to use our own insight, our own understanding to make this wisdom come forth, or act like we have wisdom when we've seen several times that we don't have wisdom, but we're determined to use our own insight and understanding. But we got to trust in the Lord. We got to rely on the Lord for the insight and the wisdom. Verse 6 reads, 6 says, "In all your ways know and acknowledge and recognize him, and he will make your path straight and smooth, removing obstacles that block your way." This is a benefit you get from listening, following the instructions of God. He will make the path straight and smooth, removing obstacles. See, you won't even have to remove the obstacle. You don't even have to worry about the obstacles standing in your way. Because of the fact that he's making your path straight and smooth, he's removing the obstacles at the same time. Let's go to James chapter 1, verse 5. This is one everyone is familiar with. It says, "If any of you lack wisdom to guide you through a decision or a circumstance." This is what we're talking about. We're seeking God for advice. We're seeking him for his wisdom to bring us through the decision that we must make. There's an advantage for us when we go to God for the wisdom when we're trying to make decisions that the world don't have. When they make a decision, it's a 50-50 chance that they will make the right decision. But when we go to God for his wisdom concerning our decisions, we have a 100% chance that our decision is going to be correct. Let's finish verse 5. He is to ask of our benevolent God, who gives to everyone generously and without rebuke or blame, and it will be given to him. In other words, when we ask of God for the wisdom to make these godly decisions, we don't have to worry about him blaming us or pointing fingers at us or rebuking us. He will graciously and generously give to the one that asks for the wisdom. Let's go over to Philippians 4, verse 6. "Do not be anxious or worried about anything." The reason why he instructs us not to be anxious or worried about anything is because he has given us authority and permission to come to him about every situation, circumstance, issue that might come our way. So if we do that, we have no reason to be worried or anxious. It goes on to say, "But in everything, every circumstance and situation, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, continue to make your specific requests known to God." Continue to make your requests known to God. There was a time that it was believed that when you prayed to God, if you prayed about the same thing twice, it meant your faith was bad. You weren't operating in faith. And I found that not to be true. I encourage everyone, if you pray to God and as you wait on the Lord and you see your faith is beginning to dwindle, because that's what the enemy does. He chisel at your faith while you're waiting. If your faith is dwindling, go back to God and pray again, because as you pray, your faith in God will build up, and you continue to operate in faith. You continue to wait. You continue to stand strong. But as you're still waiting again, the enemy is chiseling at your faith, and your faith maybe begin to waver. You might get a little double-minded. You might be doubtful. At that time, go back and pray, because every time you pray, it builds your faith up. Then when you get to the place that you're no longer in doubt, you're no longer double-minded, your faith is strong, you're able to hold on, you don't need to pray about that problem, circumstance, decision. You don't have to pray about it again because you're in a good place with your faith. But I encourage you, as you're waiting, if your faith begins to dwindle, pray again because your faith will be rebuilt. It will build back up and you'll be able to wait on the Lord even longer. Every time it dwindles, every time you feel yourself weak in your faith, pray again. Pray again because God is going to build it back up. And like I said, once you get to a place that you're no longer in doubt, you're no longer double-minded, you're secure that God is going to answer your prayer, you don't have to pray about that situation anymore. Philippians 4:6 also instructs us to make our requests not only known to God, but specific to God. You may be praying for a job. Don't just say, Father, bless me with a job. Be specific. Bless me with a job that will allow me to take care of my family, pay all my bills, meet all my responsibilities. Be specific. Your body is in pain. Don't just say, Father, touch my body. Father, touch the area of my body, my leg, my elbow, my knee, my back. Whatever is bothering you, wherever the pain is, be specific. Don't be broad, but be specific. Go directly to the point. Be specific about exactly what you need him to do. Proverbs 15:22 says, without consultation and wise advice, plans are frustrated. In other words, they get all mixed up, confusing. They're disorganized. It further says, but with many counselors, they are established and succeed. Now, when it talks about many counselors, it's not saying go to a bunch of ungodly people. It's talking about many counselors of God, many counselors that are Christian. Proverbs 15:22 also tells us that if we seek godly counsel, our plans will be established and successful. Proverbs 19:20 tells us, listen to counsel, receive instruction, and accept correction. You know, it's funny because when we are seeking counsel, one of the hardest things to accept is in the midst of the counsel, the wise counsel, when we are corrected, we want to shun the correction. But here it's saying not only listen to the counsel, receive the instruction, but also accept the correction. Because sometimes what has happened is whatever we're seeking wisdom in, our way of thinking needs to be changed. It goes on to say that you may be wise in the time to come. In other words, if you listen to counsel, receive the instructions, and even accept the correction, then in the future, you will be wise. Why? Because you already have the answer. Lastly, Proverbs 24 verse 6 says, for by wise guidance you can wage your war, and in an abundance of wise counselors there is victory and safety. When we seek counsel from God or from the godly, you know, there is victory and safety in the guidance that we receive. I just want to encourage you that as you make your decisions to seek God for the answers, for the direction and guidance. Proverbs 16:9 tells us that a man's mind plans his ways as he journeys through life. In other words, the man makes his own plans. But we have learned that when we make our own plans, they don't turn out right. In Proverbs 21:2, it says, every man's ways is right in his own eyes. In other words, we all think our decision making is correct until we find out it wasn't correct. In Isaiah 55:8, we are told by God that his thoughts are not our thoughts, and neither are our ways his ways. And for these reasons, we should go to God for the information or instructions, the guidance when we're making decisions. If I have said something that in your mind is questionable or you want to know more about, I encourage you to get with God on it. Question him. Ask him to explain it to you. I can promise you he will explain it to you. You've been listening to a Word of Knowledge broadcast, and I am your hostess, Apostle A.C. Morgan.
Dr. A.C. Morgan, Th.D., Apostle, and author has a variety of books, workbooks, and study manuals available for purchase on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, and B&N.com. I will, O Lord, magnify, exhort, and praise you at all times, the stages of your spiritual walk, preparing for your spiritual walk in Christ Jesus. The Book of James, a study guide for the individual, small, and large study group, discipleship training course. Course 101, I hear what you're saying, but I don't understand. Discipleship training course, the Gospel of St. John. Spiritual first aid kit, a personal kit for the survivor. Proverbs, a book of wisdom, insight from the wisest man of his time. Book 1, and coming soon, Proverbs, a book of wisdom, insight from the wisest man of his time. Book 2, you can purchase at Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, B&N.com.